Franklin glanced at Dana's short, brown ponytail, sleeves rolled up, a soft tiredness behind her smile. "Hi," she said, setting down a tub of clean cups. "I'll walk you through the drinks. You ever worked a cafe before?" He shook his head. "No, but I'm a fast learner." "Good." She handed him a laminated cheat sheet. "Start with learning the espresso pulls. I'll do the orders, you watch." Over the next hour, Franklin watched Dana work non-stop. She wasn't slow, not at all. If anything, she moved with care. She repeated orders under her breath to keep track, checked every drink twice, and even offered small smiles to customers. She looked like she'd been trained right. But she was clearly tired. Her hands trembled a little when she reached for syrup pumps, and her apron had a coffee stain that had probably dried before her shift even started. By 9:30, the line stretched out the door. "Where's Marcus?" Dana muttered, scanning the back. The tall guy from earlier, whose name tag read Travis, leaned against the back counter, scrolling through his phone. "He's late." Again. Dana didn't respond. She just kept moving. Franklin jumped in, offering to rinse pitchers, wipe counters, and restock lids. Dana nodded her thanks, without speaking, focused on the orders stacking up. At 10:15, as the rush slowed a bit, Travis finally tossed his phone aside and walked over. "I'll hop in now," he said, stepping beside Dana. "You're falling behind." She winced. "I'm doing my best. It's been packed since 7. "Yeah? Well, maybe your best isn't fast enough," Travis snapped. "If you can't keep up, you shouldn't be on bar." Dana blinked, visibly stung. Her voice shook. I didn't mean to slow things down." Franklin froze. The words hit harder than he expected. She looked like she was holding back tears. He hadn't said a word yet, but now he felt it rising in his throat. He wasn't just seeing a tough moment. He was watching a good worker being humiliated. Travis didn't notice. "You always take forever with orders. We need speed, not perfection. This is an art." Dana turned away quickly, wiping her cheek with her sleeve as she moved to the sink. Franklin's jaw tightened. He glanced around. The customers weren't close enough to hear, but one barista near the pastry case had stopped mid-swipe, staring at Dana with concern. Franklin took a breath and stepped forward. "Hey, that was a little much, don't you think?" Travis narrowed his eyes. "You just got here, man. Stay in your lane." "I've worked in food before," Franklin lied smoothly. "And I've seen what happens when people talk down to the ones actually carrying the shift." Travis scoffed but didn't reply. He walked off again. Dana didn't say anything. She just kept rinsing pitchers, her back stiff. Franklin helped where he could, but the energy had shifted. The team was quieter now. By noon, Travis had disappeared into the back. Dana was still on bar. During their 5-minute break, Franklin sat beside her on the back step. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." "How long you been on bar today?" "Since 6. "No break." She shook her head. "You always get treated like that?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. Depends on who's manager that day. Travis is worse when Marcus isn't around." Franklin's hands clenched. "And the district manager?" "Never here. We don't see him. I don't even know his last name." That wasn't good. Franklin had hired that district manager himself, and he was supposed to rotate through every store weekly. A total disconnect. Franklin didn't speak for a moment. He just watched Dana sip from her water bottle, her fingers trembling slightly as she recapped it. He stood. "Let's finish the shift." They stepped back inside, the smell of burnt espresso lingering. Franklin knew something had to change. But he couldn't blow his cover, yet not until he saw the full picture. And something told him the store had more going wrong than just one manager with a bad attitude. At 6 the next morning, Franklin stood in the back room of store 12 again, tying his apron more tightly than before. His lower back ached slightly from the long shift yesterday, but that wasn't what kept him up last night. He kept replaying Dana's face when she turned away from Travis. Not just the way she looked wounded, humiliated, but the way no one stepped in. Not even the other barista behind the pastry case. The silence in that moment had been louder than anything. The case is a mess, and we've got a catering pickup at 7:15. He nodded and moved quickly behind the counter. The pastry case was half empty, fingerprints on the glass, crumbs scattered on every shelf. He grabbed gloves and started organizing what little inventory they had left. At 6:45, Travis walked in, yawning loudly, biting into a breakfast sandwich. "You're late," Kylie said without looking up. He shrugged. "Traffic." Franklin glanced at the clipboard near the register. Travis was scheduled to open, which meant he should have been here at 5:30. Kylie didn't argue. She just pulled harder on the espresso handle and muttered something under her breath. Franklin focused on restocking the croissants, but his ears stayed open. "So," Travis said between bites, "guess who's not coming back? Dana texted me last night. Said she's taking a mental health leave." Kylie's tempo slowed for the first time. "Good for her." Travis laughed. "Yeah, or she just couldn't handle the heat. I can't say I'm shocked." Franklin looked up. "She seemed solid to me." Travis raised an eyebrow. "You worked with her one day. She always overthinks everything." "Too sensitive." Kylie didn't respond. She just handed a latte across the counter without making eye contact. At 7:10, a woman in heels and a crisp gray blazer walked in, talking rapidly into a Bluetooth headset. "Catering for Parker and Bloom," she said, tapping her phone. "Scheduled for 7:15. I'm early." Kylie walked over to the prep fridge, opened it, then shut it again with a sigh. "The trays aren't built." Franklin turned. "What trays?" 3 boxes breakfast pastries and coffee cambros. Should have been prepped last night. Travis leaned against the wall. "I thought Marcus was covering the closing shift." Kylie opened the walk-in and started pulling boxes. "Nope. He swapped with Rami. And Rami doesn't do catering unless someone handholds him." The woman at the counter checked her watch. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. This can't be late." Franklin stepped up. "We can build the boxes now. I'll help." Kylie nodded, grateful. Travis stayed where he was, scrolling his phone again. They worked fast. 2 full trays of croissants, muffins, and bagels, lined neatly on branded parchment. Kylie brewed extra coffee and filled the cambros while Franklin labeled everything with stickers. The woman left 3 minutes behind schedule. Not ideal, but not a disaster. Once the doors swung shut behind her, Kylie turned to Travis. "You were the closing manager yesterday. Why didn't you check the catering board?" He shrugged. "I had to leave early. My roommate locked himself out." Kylie stared at him. "That's not even close to a valid reason to leave without checking out." "I told Rami to handle it." "You told Rami? You didn't write anything down." Travis crossed his arms. "What's the big deal?" "It got done." Franklin stepped away before Kylie could answer. He needed air. He grabbed the trash bin from under the pastry counter and headed for the alley. The moment the door swung shut behind him, he let out a breath. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was systemic. Untrained closers, no communication, no accountability. And Travis wasn't just sloppy, he was dangerous to morale. He returned inside to find Kylie arguing with a delivery driver over a missing syrup case. Travis was gone again, this time in the office, door shut. Franklin watched Kylie handle the entire exchange alone, apologizing to the driver and signing off on the short invoice. Her hands were stained with syrup from the leaky bottle she'd just cleaned off the floor. By 9, the store was packed again. A line out the door, only 2 people on bar. Franklin stepped in to help run drinks, calling out orders as best he could. A tall man in a gray hoodie stepped up to the counter. "This is supposed to be decaf," he said, holding up a drink. "I'll fix it," Franklin said, grabbing a fresh cup. He turned to Kylie. "Decaf Americano, no room." She nodded, already pulling the shot. Behind them, the office door creaked open. Travis reappeared, holding a breakfast sandwich again. "You just take your second break?" Kylie asked. "Because that's your third sandwich." He ignored her. A woman behind the pastry case called out, "We're out of oat milk." Travis sighed dramatically. "Why do we even carry this stuff? It's like everyone's suddenly allergic to cows." Franklin's head snapped toward him. A customer standing nearby heard it too. A young woman, maybe 25, with a white cane folded under her arm. She stepped forward hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but some of us aren't suddenly allergic. I have a dairy allergy. It's not a choice." Kylie looked over, startled. "I'll check the back stock." Travis waved her off. "If we're out, we're out. People can deal for one day." The woman hesitated, then stepped back in line, clearly uncomfortable now. Franklin walked up to the espresso bar. "I'll check the back." He found a full case of oat milk behind the prep fridge, unopened, labeled, tucked behind soda cans. He returned with 2 cartons in hand and handed one to Kylie. Travis looked at him like he'd committed some sin. "You went into the back fridge?" Franklin didn't answer. He turned to the woman with the cane. "We've got oat milk. I'll make your drink myself." She smiled faintly. "Thank you." By 10, Travis had vanished again. This time, no one even asked where he went. At 11:15, a man in a gray vest walked in, holding a clipboard. "Health inspection." Kylie froze. "Now." The man nodded. "Routine." Franklin stepped aside as the inspector moved behind the counter. He watched him check the temp logs, open the fridge, test sanitizer levels. 10 minutes in, the inspector frowned. "These sanitizer strips expired 4 months ago." Kylie's face fell. "They're the only ones we've got." "Where's your manager?" Franklin pointed toward the office. "He's been in there for a while." The inspector knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. Kylie sighed and walked over. She opened the door without waiting. Travis was inside, asleep in the desk chair, earbuds in. The inspector raised an eyebrow. "We'll follow up on this." He handed Kylie a printout and left. Franklin watched her shoulders fall as she folded the notice and shoved it into the drawer beneath the register. He waited until Travis finally stepped out, rubbing his eyes. "Everything good?" he asked. "You missed the health inspection," Kylie said flatly. Travis blinked. "Seriously?" Franklin stepped forward. "You were in the office the whole time?" "I was on a call." "With your eyes closed?" Travis turned toward him. "What's your problem, man?" Franklin held his gaze, just long enough. Then he walked away, seething. That was the final straw. He slipped into the back, pulled out his phone, and tapped a contact labeled Lena, Ops Lead. He typed one sentence. "Pull Travis's file. Terminate immediately for dereliction and misconduct. I'll explain soon." He slipped the phone back into his pocket, took a long breath, and stepped back into the store. He wasn't revealing himself yet. Not until he met with the district manager. Not until he knew how this had gone unchecked for so long. But Travis was done. And the rest? That was just beginning. Franklin waited until the store cleared just enough for him to move unnoticed. The lunch lull had hit, and with fewer customers, the energy dropped from frantic to strained. Kylie was wiping down the bar with slow, deliberate movements. Her jaw was tight, her eyes locked on the espresso machine as if trying to will it into silence. She hadn't said a word since the health inspector left. Franklin stepped beside her quietly. "You should take 15, he said. She didn't look up. "I can't. There's no one on register, and if a mobile order comes through, it's just you and me. You're not trained on half the system." "I'll figure it out. I'm not leaving you to deal with this." Franklin nodded once. Then we'll both stay. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No big speeches. Just two people doing the work that needed doing, because no one else would. At 12:30, the district manager finally walked in.
Tall, polished.
A fitted navy coat, hair combed to the side with care. He looked like he had just come from a leadership seminar. The tag on his chest read Eli B. District Lead. Franklin had hired him 2 years ago, promoted him from assistant general manager at a downtown location. At the time, Eli had been attentive, responsible, and deeply invested in Café culture. But right now, he was scanning the store like he didn't recognize it. "Hey team," Eli said, voice high and breezy. "Just stopping by on my route." Kylie didn't answer. She didn't even glance up. Franklin stepped back slightly, watching. "Where's Travis?" Eli asked, eyes flicking toward the back. "He's gone," Kylie said flatly.
Eli Dlinker.
"Gone where?" "He was terminated this morning." Eli's face shifted quickly, surprise, confusion, then an attempt to smile.
"Oh.
I didn't hear anything about that." Franklin stepped forward. "I sent the directive," he said. Eli turned sharply. "You did?" Franklin reached up and pulled the cap from his head. The glasses came off next. He didn't say anything for a beat. Just looked Eli in the eye. Eli took a step back. "Wait, yeah," Franklin said. "It's me." Kylie stared, mouth slightly open. She set the steaming pitcher down hard enough that it clanged. "I didn't expect to walk into this," Eli said, voice quieter now. "You weren't supposed to," Franklin replied. "I came here to see what was going on at store 12. I've been here since yesterday morning." Eli shifted on his feet. "If I had known, you'd have shown up earlier?" Franklin asked. "Inspected the fridge? Read the schedule?" Eli's mouth opened, then closed. He turned slightly to Kylie. "Could I speak with you both in the back?" Kylie shook her head. "I'm not leaving the bar unattended." Franklin didn't move either. "We'll talk here." Eli hesitated, then sighed. "All right. I'll be honest. I've been overloaded. I've got 8 locations under me. One of my GMs is on parental leave. Another's quitting in 3 weeks. I've been doing patchwork every day." "No one asked you to do patchwork," Franklin said. "We ask you to lead." Eli looked at him, eyes defensive now. "I've tried. But this store? It's been a revolving door. I approved 4 hires in the last 2 months.
They didn't last a week. No one wants to stay.
The applicant pool is thin, and everyone's underqualified." Franklin nodded. "So instead of tightening standards, you let people like Travis run shifts alone. You let catering get missed. You let a barista be publicly embarrassed and walked out of the store feeling worthless." Eli exhaled hard. "I didn't know about Dana. You should have." "She never filed a formal complaint." Franklin's jaw set. "You shouldn't need a complaint to know when something's wrong. You're supposed to be in these stores. You're supposed to know your people." Kylie stepped in then. "He hasn't been here in 3 weeks. Last time he came in, he stayed 10 minutes and left because we looked fine." Eli turned toward her. "You could have reached out." "I did," she said, voice steady now. "I emailed you about supply issues. Asked for coverage on the Sunday shift. I flagged the sanitizer strip expiration last week." Eli looked down. "I didn't see that." Franklin crossed his arms. "So either you ignored it or your system's broken. Either way, it's on you." Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay. I hear you." "No," Franklin said. "You listen and then you act." Eli looked at Kylie. "I'm sorry." Kylie didn't respond. She just returned to the espresso machine and began steaming milk again. Franklin walked Eli toward the back room. "You're not being fired," he said. "But you're being reassigned. Effective immediately. You'll spend the next 6 weeks shadowing operations at Store 2 under Marie. You'll relearn what it means to lead from the floor." Eli's face flushed, but He didn't protest. Franklin continued. Store 12 will report directly to me until a new manager is placed. I'll be here every day until then. Eli nodded once, then left without another word. When Franklin returned to the front, Kylie was finishing up a drink for a delivery driver. You knew the whole time? She asked, not turning around. I didn't come here to catch anyone off guard, he said. I came because something fell off, and I needed to see it for myself. She handed the drink across the counter.
Well,
you saw it. I saw you keeping this place upright with no support. That's not nothing. Kylie finally looked over. What now? Weary build. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. By late afternoon, Franklin had scheduled a meeting with the regional HR partner. He submitted Dana's shift notes and logged his own observations. He requested a full audit of all scheduling records and catering logs from the past 3 months. He called Dana directly. She didn't answer, but he left a message. Then he walked the floor again. The back fridge needed rearranging. The inventory logs were handwritten and inconsistent. He found 2 expired yogurt cups and tossed them out. The cleaning checklist hadn't been signed in 3 days. He watched a high schooler behind the register stumble through an order, overwhelmed by the rush. Franklin stepped in, helped him build the drink, and then pulled him aside. What's your name? Luca, the kid said nervously. How long you been here? 2 weeks. Who trained you? Travis? I think. He showed me how to clock in. And Kylie gave me the drink sheet. Franklin nodded. You want to get good at this? Luca looked confused, but nodded. Then you'll train with me tomorrow. 7 sharp. Luca looked surprised. Wait, you're staying? I'm not going anywhere, Franklin said. As he stepped outside to take a call, he passed a woman sitting alone at the patio table, sipping tea. She looked up slightly worn cardigan, tired eyes, and a notepad filled with scribbles. Excuse me, she said softly. Do you work here? For now, he replied. I just wanted to say. The girl who made my drink earlier, I think her name was Kylie? She was kind. I come here a lot, and I've seen what she deals with. She always handles it with grace. Franklin nodded. She deserves better. The woman smiled faintly. I hope she gets it.
So, did he?
That night, Franklin stayed to close. He helped mop the floors, restock the prep fridge, and wipe down the counters. Kylie didn't ask him to. She didn't have to. They finished just after 10. She handed him the keys wordlessly. He locked the front door and stared out at the dark lot for a moment. Then he turned off the lights. Tomorrow, he'd be back. And this time, Dana would be too if she was ready. There was still a long way to go, but the cleanup had started. And for the first time in a long time, the store felt like it belonged to the people who actually cared. By the time Franklin arrived just before 6 the next morning, the sky was still a dull navy, and the streetlights along the parking lot were flickering off one by one. He parked in the far corner, where he could sit quietly for a moment and collect his thoughts. The last few days had stripped away every illusion he'd had about his company's health. It was humbling but necessary. He hadn't built his cafes to grow into machines. He'd built them to give people a place that felt like something better. Inside, the lights were already on. Kylie stood at the bar with her sleeves rolled and her hair pulled into a knot, focused on adjusting the grind setting on the espresso machine. She didn't look over when he entered. He took his usual apron from the hook and joined her behind the counter. Did you sleep? He asked. Kind of, she said without looking at him. Had to rewrite the prep list. Half the inventory counts were wrong. He nodded once. We'll run double checks together later. I've got Dana coming in around 8. If she's up for it, she'll just shadow today. Kylie finally turned her head. She's coming back? She agreed to meet. No pressure. She just wants to see the place for herself. Kylie wiped her hands on her apron. I hope she does. She was better than most of us. She just never said no. She shouldn't have had to. They opened the store in silence. Franklin handled the register and made a point to greet every customer by name if he could catch it. Kylie managed bar with efficiency, the kind that came from long hours and no shortcuts. By 7, they had a steady rhythm, orders called clearly, drinks delivered without confusion, no one waiting more than a few minutes. At 7:45, Dana stepped through the door. She looked unsure, hair pulled back tight, wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans, hands stuffed in her pockets. Franklin approached her with no apron on, nothing in his hands, just a quiet nod. "You okay being here?" he asked. "I think so," she said. "I almost turned around in the parking lot." "I'm glad you didn't." Kylie waved from the bar, a faint curve at the corner of her mouth. "We could use your eyes on bar flow." Dana stepped behind the counter without a word and stood beside Kylie. They didn't hug, didn't talk much, but there was something in the way they moved that said everything they trusted each other. By 9, the cafe was humming. Franklin had brought in a temporary shift lead from store 4 to help cover the pastry case, someone Kylie had vouched for. With 3 people behind bar and 1 on register, the team was finally balanced. Midway through a lull, Franklin pulled Dana aside gently.
"I saw what happened that day."
"I didn't step in fast enough." Dana looked down. "You did more than most. I should have done more sooner. I also should have been here long before that." She nodded slowly. "I thought about quitting for good. I even applied to work somewhere else. But then I kept thinking about the regulars, about the smell of the place in the morning, about how much better it could be." "It will be," Franklin said, "but only if people like you help shape it." She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. Around 10, Franklin stepped into the back to check on the temporary shift lead's paperwork and found Luca, the new hire, wiping down the dry storage shelves. He looked up nervously. "Did I miss something?" Luca asked quickly.
"No. You're doing fine," Franklin said.
"You doing all right with training?" Luca hesitated.
"Yeah."
"It's just weird now. Everyone seems so serious." "We're trying to rebuild something," Franklin said. "That takes focus." Luca nodded, unconvinced. Franklin leaned against the doorframe. "You feel like you can ask questions when you need to?" "I do now," Luca said. "Before, I didn't want to bother anyone. Travis used to just tell me to figure it out myself." Franklin stayed quiet for a beat. Then, "You're not bothering anyone. You learning is part of everyone's job. Hold us to that." Luca went back to wiping. By noon, the store felt different. Not lighter, there was still too much recovery ahead for that, but sturdier. Customers lingered longer. A few even complimented their drinks. One man said it was the first time in weeks he'd gotten the right mobile order on the first try. Around 1, Franklin gathered the team in the back, one by one, to talk through immediate changes. Kylie sat on a milk crate, sipping water, while Franklin stood near the whiteboard. "No more solo openers," he said. 2 people minimum on every opening shift. We'll stagger start times so no one burns out by noon." Kylie nodded slowly. "That'd help. I'm also fast-tracking payroll reviews. If anyone's owed overtime or missed breaks in the last pay period, they'll be reimbursed." She blinked. "Seriously?" "I don't bluff," Franklin said. "It'll be on your next check." He turned to Dana, who had been sitting quietly on an upturned crate. "If you're willing, I'd like you to step into a training lead role. You'd have input on onboarding, shadow shifts, and training materials. You wouldn't be on bar full-time. It'd be split hours." Dana looked at him carefully. "Why me?" "Because you do it already. You make people better when they work beside you. That's what leadership is." She swallowed hard. "I'll think about it. It's your call. No pressure." He turned back to the whiteboard. "Also, Kylie's being promoted to acting store manager. Effective today." Kylie sat up straighter. "Wait, acting?" "For now," Franklin said. "You'll be evaluated after 30 days. But based on what I've seen, I don't expect it to be temporary. Kylie looked at Dana, then back at Franklin. I didn't ask for that. You earned it anyway. She didn't say anything else. But her hands, which had been clenched around her water bottle, slowly relaxed. By 4, the store had quieted again. Franklin sat on the patio alone, finally letting the breeze hit his face. A man in his 50s approached cautiously, holding a coffee. You run this place? Franklin nodded. I come in every afternoon, the man said. I don't say much. I just sit. But I've noticed it feels different in here today. Like someone finally turned the lights on. Franklin gave a small nod. That's the goal. The man smiled faintly. Hope you keep it that way. Inside, the team was closing out afternoon prep. Kylie had already started a new bar flow chart. Dana was reviewing the training binder. Luca was labeling syrups with newly printed expiration dates. Franklin watched them through the glass for a long moment. Then he stood, walked back in, and helped wipe down the espresso machine. That night, he locked the store with his own hands. There would still be hard days ahead. Not every shift would run smooth. Not every change would land perfectly. But the foundation had shifted. The right people were in place now. The wrong ones were gone. And from here, it was no longer about fixing what was broken. It was about building something worthy of the people who kept showing up.